Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sammasambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sammasambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sammasambuddhassa. Buddham dhammang sangham namasami. Dear friends, this is the regular Tuesday night program with the Dhamma Darini. I had in mind to continue today with a theme that emerged from this past Sunday. We were looking at the greater sutta, the longer discourse to Rahula, in which the Buddha gave several different meditations as the antidotes for certain problems. So he mentioned loving kindness as the antidote to aversion, compassion as the antidote to cruelty, sympathetic joy as the antidote to either a discontent or boredom or envy. Equanimity as the antidote to irritation. Contemplating the asubha contemplation as the antidote to lust, and the contemplation of impermanence as the antidote to the conceit, I am. So, in order to use meditation in this way to balance the mind, depends on several factors, doesn't it? For example, it could be that in a certain part of your trajectory as a trainee in this Dhamma and Vinaya, in this Dhamma and practice, that you are focused on building up certain strengths. This is sort of like in the life cycle of a human being, a young person, like a student in college, or somebody who's starting out their career, maybe wanted to discover what talents and capabilities that they possess. Like they want to understand their own nature in terms of their strong points, and then they want to develop their strong points and make their strong points to become even stronger and more clear. And it could be that at a certain time in meditation, that this is what you need to do. It might be that out of this whole multifaceted gem of the Dhamma, with several different parts and stages to the training, several different aspects, that there will be some aspect of the training that you find, yes, I'm able to do this practice. So, for example, I use myself as an example. When I was starting out, for some reason, meditation on the five aggregates really attracted my attention, and I spent quite a lot of time developing that. And the meditation on the six sense bases was the weakest meditation for me. It just um, uh, it's a question. It's really a question of a person's personality or their style of thinking or style of learning or something like that. But to be like engaging with the contact of the six senses like that, just uh, it was like I couldn't quite see the point. It wasn't interesting to me, um, and so 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 for that point of time, if there was something that one is able to do, then one can do it. Um, even I got an idea when I was starting out. Um, my primary teacher, Bhante Gunaratana, very often spoke about anicca. And the two things he spoke about the most frequently were about anicca or impermanence, or about the practice of metta or loving kindness. And I just got the impression that these two contemplations were the most powerful, dynamic gateways for him, and that his greatest progress, his greatest accomplishments in samadhi and wisdom had the starting point of the contemplation of those two. I never asked him; he didn't confirm with me that those two were important, but it was just what I noticed in terms of the themes that he spoke about the most often. And then the second in command over there at the Bhavana Society was Bhante Rahula. This is the California Rahula. Um, he very often spoke about the contemplation of non-self. He didn't write very many books, but he wrote a book, a collection of sutras about non-self. And he specifically mentioned with the struggles that he had, the things that he needed to overcome earlier on in his own career, that the contemplation of non-self was the one that was the most powerful, the most dynamic, the most um, eye-opening practice that led him to both develop in wisdom and also to be able to go beyond his um, uh, the habits of the mind that he had before starting the monastic form. And then for myself at that time, I felt that the contemplation that was very useful for me was the contemplation of dukkha. So between myself and my two teachers, we had the contemplation of anicca, anatta, and dukkha. Uh, uh, so at one point in our life, it may be good to find the practice that's best for us and to really work that practice to get all the juice out of it we can. But then it may also be that at another time in our practice, those contemplations that we neglected before are ones that we need to develop. We need to become competent because maybe our meditation has gotten, one-sided, or there's some aspect of the habitual formations of the mind that's something that's holding us back. That's creating you could say it's creating a glass ceiling that we can go just so far in our practice, but then we can't seem to go any further. And if that's the case, then with tremendous honesty, we have to be able to do a self-assessment and to try to see what's holding us back. So when one encounters a dukkha, well, that's the great opportunity for seeing what's really going on, and to see what's really behind or underlying the experience of dukkha, or something that we're clinging to, or something that we're avoiding, or some kind of unhelpful or even negative or toxic kind of habit of the mind that we're still carrying around with us, that's bringing us that experience of dukkha. And so, yeah, it's good to look and see. Or another way to see what's holding us back is if a person is practicing meditation and aiming for samadhi, aiming for the unification of the mind, and for stillness, concentration, and finding that very stable space that's secluded from the hindrances. But despite whatever efforts that we're making, the mind does not stay on the theme of meditation that we've chosen for that hour. So even something as minor as sitting down for meditation, settling it, awareness on the breath or something, and then some sensation or some thought comes along, and the mind leaves the breath and goes to think about something else. And that's such a precious, valuable moment to see what's happening right there. It might be that just at that moment, when the mind moves away from the chosen meditation object, then you might see like aversion or discontent or some kind of self thinking, or sensual desire is a factor there. And then if you see it, then you got a chance to do something with it. One very basic format that the Buddha mentioned, not in the Maharula Vada Sutta, but in several other places. He speaks about balancing in terms of the spiritual faculties, and with the idea that if the mind is restless, that would not be the optimal time to develop investigation of dhammas or arousing energy, because then the mind is already restless, and trying those themes could make the mind more restless. But if the mind is drowsy or sleepy or suffering from boredom, then you could find that arousing energy, that investigation of Dhamma is the ideal practice to undertake. And then likewise, if the mind is drowsy, that you wouldn't want to just immediately go towards tranquility and concentration, because the drowsy mind could, slip further into dullness. So you would develop those activating factors first. But if it happens that the mind is balanced, that it's not drowsy and not sleepy, and not restless and not overly activated, but in a state that's balanced, then you have this a wonderful opportunity to set the mindfulness right in the center, and then to, in a balanced way, develop all of those factors. So you've got the activating factors of arousing energy and investigating, and then the more tranquilizing factors of tranquility and concentration and equanimity, all of them being developed together in a balanced way. There's a way in which I feel that a very good starting point for meditation. Sometimes when I give you guided meditations, I start with this. It's hello, how are you? Just like if you see a friend and you would look at your friend in the eyes and with a real interest and real kindness say, oh, friend, how are you today? And your friend would be pleased and comforted to know that you're taking an interest in them. And then they might say, oh, I'm not so good, or oh, I'm doing great, or whatever they say. So because of your interest, then they're able to bring out what's going on. And so while we are going through the day, especially if we're in a society where we're encountering a lot of people, and we, in a certain way, we have to suppress our inner feelings and reactions in order to be diplomatic towards the people that we're around, or in order to take care of the chores and the jobs that we have to do. We sort of put our own self-awareness to the side. But then coming to meditation, you can stop that, put down the busyness, put down if there's any kind of like a facade that you have to keep up to look well in society, you can put down the facade, put down the busyness, and say hello to yourself. Say, how are you? What's really going on? And it could be that, maybe there's some emotion happening, when, we feel sad or depressed or anxious or fearful or uh, irritated, or any number of different emotional moods could be going on, and we would have kept those emotional moods sort of like under control. But if you take those few minutes at the beginning of meditation to see what kind of mood you're in, then you may know what kind of practice can be good for you. There's another aspect about arousing these contemplations that are, in a way, opposite to the difficulties we may experience. So, if a person, let's say, taking compassion as an alternative to cruelty, it's hard to imagine a Buddhist actually being in a mood of cruelty. I guess if there's some kind of a contest or a competition going on, and your team is trying to defeat the other team, and you know, those with this flag are trying to defeat those with the other flag, and if one is caught up in doing that, or if that's your job to do that, it could be that then you could be so inconsiderate as to allow uh, cruel thoughts of how to make the other side, feel bad so they could be defeated. So but if that were true, and then your friend or your Buddhist would come to you and say, friend, why don't you take that enemy and bring up the thought of compassion for your enemy. See how much they suffer. And bring out the thought, may they come out of that suffering. Or if one is feeling caught up in this mood of discontent, which is sort of like the opposite of joy. So that could be a depressive state or a kind of a low state. And then if your friend or your Buddhist teacher said, well, that sad or depressed negative state of mind is an unskillful state of mind. Why don't you just be joyful and bring up some joy, and so you can come out of feeling depressed? Well, that's very difficult to do. If a person really is caught up in one kind of a emotional configuration, one mood like that, then to just jump to the opposite is a very challenging kind of practice. So this is why in the Vitakka Santana Sutta, the Buddha gave a gradation of a series of different steps for working one's way out of these negative or afflictive patterns of thought, so that just seeing clearly what's going on, seeing the danger and what's going on, practicing a gradual step-by-step stepping down, like calming and tranquilizing the activation of those negative types of thoughts. And then after those negative thoughts have been reduced and weakened, then it may be possible or more possible to just replace them with their opposite. But once we've learned the um, magic, or the once we've learned that this really can work, that it's possible to practice these contemplations, the positive contemplations, at times that we're able to, that the mind is not caught up in negativity, and to even have some kind of like a mental habit, or some kind of a reference point um, that we can pick up mentally in order to go to that other state. And it actually is possible to, like it says, the carpenter uses one peg to knock out another peg. So that negative state is stuck into the mind like a peg is stuck into a piece of furniture or something that the carpenter is working on. And it's really in there. But they can take a different peg and tap, tap, tap and pop it out. And it can pop out. It's possible that this mood of aversion, this mood of cruelty, or this mood of discontent or negativity or irritation or desire or self-conceit, it's possible that those states actually can just pop out. And so this is my thought. The reason I'm giving this talk right now is because I'm not completely sure. I don't know what negativity, if any, is present within any of you or any of your minds. And so I don't know which kind of contemplation would be helpful for each one of you to balance yourself, to come to the clear state where the energies are balanced between restlessness and sleepiness, and where any kind of unskillful thinking that may have crept into our minds is able to be knocked out. I think what I'm going to do is actually invite a bit of conversation before we'll do our conversation first and meditation second. I wonder if anybody understands what I'm talking about, or could give any examples of ways of using a particular meditation to offset and balance the mind. I see a hand up from Adam, so I'll call on Adam.
Hi, thank you very much. And this has been a very relevant conversation to me personally, because I'm still very new. I just joined this group back in January, and your talks have been very helpful. But ever since you started teaching the loving kindness meditation, that is what it's like a flower bloomed in my mind. Like, I've been suffering so much from like anxiety and depression. And that loving kindness meditation where I'm like self-chanting in my mind about, may I be loved, may all beings be loved, may I be free of anxiety, may all beings be free of anxiety. And then the other day, I don't know if this is skillful or not, but I introduced the concept of forgiveness um, in the context of loving kindness. May I be forgiven for my mistakes. May all beings be forgiven for their mistakes. And it's just been, it's just helped me so much. And I want to thank you for your teachings and opening my eyes to that because it's just really wonderful.
Great. Thank you. That's a wonderful example. Thank you for sharing that. Indeed, loving kindness is perhaps the very, almost like a universal for many different kinds of uh, difficulties that one may encounter, because loving kindness wants all the difficulties to be resolved. And I remind you to please speak to the mic.
So sometimes when the mind is agitated with like a aversive feeling, I try to recollect the qualities of the Buddha, specifically the quality of Arahant. So that helps me to move away from the aversive thoughts. So, thank you.
I was thinking that the contemplation about the qualities of the Buddha is, in a way, a kind of a mudita practice. And there have been there's something that's very similar to what I learned as a young Catholic child, that has a bit of a parallel with the qualities of the Buddha. I am so grateful that the Buddha is the most skillful teacher possible, and that the Buddha's intentions towards the world were nothing except compassion. So the Buddha did not have any like bad intention or no cruel intention whatsoever for any being anywhere. So he had that combination of compassion or kindness together with skillfulness in a skillful means of teaching. So that then when I feel disappointed with people and the shortcomings of people, then I remember the Buddha as the one who doesn't have those shortcomings. And I think if the Buddha was here, if I could actually ask the Buddha what to do, what does the Buddha want me to do right now? And then I would follow that advice because of my admiration and respect for the Buddha. And then there's another kind of a way that extends a little bit, and that is there's a saying of Ajahn Chah. He said, the whole world is teaching me. And then it makes me realize that even a circumstance that's negative, or even another person who's not perfect, that they are still teaching me. Either they're teaching me by a positive example what to do, or they're teaching me by a negative example what not to do. Or they're teaching me by presenting some difficulty with how to tolerate difficulties. Or they're showing just, in so many ways by setting examples. And there's something about that then extends from my taking the Buddha as sort of like the archetypal target for this mudita, this sympathetic joy, to rejoice in the success of another. Okay, I really rejoice in the success of the Sama Sambuddha. I'm really glad that the world has had such a person. But then that's kind of like a starting point to be able to open my mind and be able to see the goodness in many different kinds of people and situations, and to appreciate goodness wherever I see it. So thank you for that. Maitri.
Thank you, Ayya. Um, you mentioned about balancing and knowing what state your mind is in. Just wanted to share an experience in so sometimes I sit down to meditate and there's lots of thoughts in my mind from the day's activities or work or churning through, and I sit down with the idea of staying with my breath. And it's a struggle, and I struggle through it. For whatever the time of the meditation, maybe it's some use, but I really struggle through it. Mind is going all over, like back to the activities, bring it back, or it's going. But then there's been, so being stubborn and trying to struggle through it. But there's been times where I would sit down and think, start doing metta meditation instead when the mind is all over. And I find that it's much more easy to, because this I guess vitaka vichara, the more, and that I can stay on that topic without there's some thinking involved. So it's so I wanted to bring it up because you mentioned the coarse peg and the finer peg pushing one out of with the other. So I feel like this might be what's happening when I'm trying to do that. Leave the other thoughts. They don't interfere as much. I can leave them out and focus on the metta, and then after some time the mind does settle down and makes it easier to do. So I just wanted to share that. Thank you.
Thank you. So for you, the metta meditation is a strong point for you because it's a practice that you are able to do. Even when you've had a difficult day or a restless mind, you still are able to enter into metta meditation. And so then, having developed that, you can continue to develop that and make it become really all-purpose, very effective medicine that's available for you in all kinds of circumstances. And then you may see, like, how quickly you're able to get there and to be able to knock out the bad peg with metta. Thank you. Is there anybody in this room who finds the Asubha practice to be beneficial And if so, how is it beneficial? One of you had mentioned a few days ago that for those who are well established and make the breakthrough to stream entry, able to easily gain samadhi whenever they want to, and have got access to the very pleasant, blissful feelings and the extremely pleasant tranquility of body and mind, which is available in that samadhi meditation, as well as the other aspects that, the life of one who's made that breakthrough, who's a trainee on the path, is very pleasant. But then to keep up the urgency and the strong will to make the subsequent breakthroughs of insight. Um, the Asubha practice is a way of keeping that first insight, the insight into dukkha, keeping that alive, that we know that, this body is subjected to so many unpleasant aspects. Somebody gave us a book, an anatomy book, that has extremely, like very realistic photographs of the inside organs and the teeth, and it shows like diseased teeth that have cavities and so forth, and like the inside of the sinuses and kind of things like that, and so that if we tend to have a danger of kind of like getting lost in that blissful meditation, that we could remember, that bliss is not just for pleasure and enjoyment, but that bliss is supposed to be for the purpose of providing us for a ground for wisdom. It's like a more of a safe, a good space for wisdom to arise. But from that point of, having, like, we can get access to joy whenever we want to, but we don't lose touch with having the knowledge of the suffering in the world. Well, why don't we sit and have some meditation together? Let's come to an upright and balanced posture. Letting go of any agitation or excitement from the day, and even from the talkiness of the conversation that we just had. Just aware of the physical body. Relaxing the body. Aware of the movement of the breath. As we become still and quiet, any sensation that's very noticeable, just relax around that. Keeping the breath in mind. Gradually letting the other thoughts or sensations to settle down. noticing whatever arises, but coming back or keeping the breath in mind. And bringing in the thought of kindness. For oneself as for all. For all as for myself. May I find my joy. May I be happy and secure. May everyone be happy and secure. Letting the thought of kindness fill the entire space of the body and mind. Imagine the body flooded with kindness. If the mind wanders, notice that what's happening right there. And returning to awareness of the body. Watching the breath. And bringing in the thought of kindness. Aware of the feeling connected to kindness. Letting the feeling of kindness fill the entire body. letting the thought of kindness go in all directions with no boundaries, no limitations. Kindness to all as to myself. Kindness to myself as to all. Araham Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Buddhang Bhagavantang Abhivademi Sawakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhamman Namasami Supatipanno Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Samghang Namami. Thank you, everybody, for your good practice and your patient listening tonight.
Thank you, Ayya. Thank you, Ayya. Good night.
Thank you, Ayya.
Thank you, Ayya.